Just a quick little intro to this video for everybody. This is my RetroArch on PlayStation Classic internal mod. This is an update number one. I've made some progress and I've got a few questions for the community in there as well for anyone who knows anything about it. I do want to start out by saying I apologize. At the beginning of the video, there's going to be two separate parts. One is me recording the PlayStation Classic, showing you guys a few things. Second part is my screen capture on my computer. So the screen capture on the computer looks great. Me recording with my phone, for some reason my S8 likes to autofocus. I don't know. But it really is about the content and what's been done and what can be done. So I really hope you guys, could just stick it out. The camera quality is not 100% on the first bit, but let me tell you, it's really, really cool to run RetroArch on the PlayStation Classic. So I'll stop rambling right now and let you guys get into the video. You can see where I'm at, and let's see where we can take this thing.
Welcome, Harrison Hacks.
Hey guys, welcome back to Harrison Hacks. This is an update for the PlayStation Classic internal RetroArch mod that I've been working on. I'm going to shut down my PlayStation Classic really quick and then boot, and I'll explain what's going on from there. So I'm turning it off, and I'll turn it back on. And if you saw the first video for this, I apologize if there's any auto zoom. I'm just quickly using my phone for this video. It's more about the information. So you can see RetroArch doesn't automatically boot right from launch. I'm going through all my games. The other thing I couldn't do last time was launch a game from the main menu and have RetroArch installed. But now I'm using PCSX from the BleemSync build, BleemSync 1.2. I took that emulator so that I could press select and triangle and go ahead and, I have the PCSX menu, but I can also exit a game without pressing the reset button on my console. Everything's still working, save states and all that good stuff. One thing you'll notice here, RetroArch as a game. So before I launch it, at the end of this video, I'm going to switch over to the PC and show you guys my internal file structure on my PlayStation Classic. This is because I need some feedback on a few things, but we'll get into that into this video. So I'm going to show you what I've done so far, what's working, what's not working, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to launch RetroArch as if it were a game, and I'm using the Intercept app with a launch TXT that launches RetroArch. This is 1.78. This is the BleemSync build of RetroArch. I could not get the Auto Bleem version to work. I've only got the BleemSync version working, and so far so good for the most part. So I've only done one playlist so far, and that's NES. So if I launch a game, I'll run it, and this is launched through FCE UMM. I use this over Nestopia because with Nestopia I was having some graphical glitches and things of that nature. So this just FCE UMM in my experience is working far better than Nestopia. You may have, a different opinion, but for me it works. So punch, kick, and I've also got turbo. LR start and select. I can do a screenshot, save state, load state, and all that stuff works on screen. Like bezels, I've installed bezels, but I turned them off. But I'll back out, and then main menu, so on and so forth. So if I go to main menu, quick menu, close content. So all that's working. The core overrides work. I can go, if I want to just say load content, and I go to my start directory. I have arcade, WrestleFest, load archive. It goes back to the main UI. So kind of odd. So I'll relaunch RetroArch. Now if I go to load core and I choose FB Alpha, I believe it was 2012, and then I go to load content, load archive. Okay, it was just the standard FB Alpha. So my bad, guys. I'll get this done here. FB Alpha, I'll load it up. Just your standard FB Alpha, load content, start directory, arcade, WrestleFest, load archive, FB Alpha. I always get a glimpse of the main UI, but then the game starts. I could put in some coins, press start, and I can play a game if I so choose. I'm going to close the content. And it gives me another glimpse. So I don't know about loading screens and all that stuff at this point. I don't mind the little glimpse of the main UI when it's flashing back to RetroArch. It doesn't bother me per se. If I could change it, I would, but I'm learning as I go. And I got to be completely honest with you there. I'm not a pro at this. I'm just learning as I go. And if I break my system, I got a bunch of backups sitting around on the floor. Brand new in the box, because for 29 bucks Canadian, can't beat it. So anyways, load core. All these cores load, and I'll show you the ones that don't. So CPS 1, good. CPS 2, good. 3's good. All the FBAs are good. FCE UMM, yes. So if I were to launch it, you can see it on the bottom left. Now let me go to Flycast. It won't change. So Flycast is not working, and I'm not sure why. If someone could help me out, that'd be great. Gambat works. Genesis plus GX LibRetro does not load up for me, which sucks because I wanted to put some Sega games on here and try out my Sega Genesis Mini controllers, which I like my Sega Genesis Mini as well. GPSP works. MAME 2000 works. MAME 2003 works, but MAME 2003 Plus does not work. Mednafen PCE Fast does not work. Mednafen Virtual Boy, it does work. MGBA works. Mupin 64 Plus, it works. Gless 2. But Mupin 64 Plus Next does not work. Nystopia works. Parallel does not work. PCSX Rearmed, I've got two versions here, so I renamed one with a 2 at the end. They both work. Pico Drive does not work. PPSSPP does not work, and I was really hoping to do some thorough testing on PSP games and see if I could get anything rocking and rolling, but it just won't load for me. Rycast does load, but I know Flycast is the newer, bigger, better one, and it doesn't load. So I got the old school one to work, but the Flycast won't work. All of the SNES 9Xs, all of them that you see there, they all work. So those are my cores issues. If anyone has any idea what I could go and do from there, that would be great. Maybe set me up with a core. I've tried many different versions of cores. They're not seemingly working. Anything from KMFD Manic is not working. His cores won't work for me. I'm going to go through and retest and see if I can get any of them to work. He's got such an extensive collection of cores. He's really good at what he does. So I definitely want to give a run through of all those cores and make a list of what's working and what's not so far. So here's where I'm at. I can go ahead and play a bunch of different systems, not all, so that's unfortunate. If I want to quit RetroArch, it's just going to take me back to the main UI, and I can go ahead and play a game if I want. So what I'm looking to do with this mod, anybody that knows how to make this happen, I want all of my PlayStation games on the main menu. When I launch one, instead of it launching through PCSX, I want it to launch through RetroArch and play through the core that way, automatically. So eliminate the stock emulator, which runs a lot of games perfectly fine, some not so much. RetroArch just has better compatibility. And so I would just like to be able to launch a game from this menu and play it through RetroArch and eliminate the need for this box art right here. Right now it comes in handy for testing, but I have not figured out a way to link this to this behind the scenes without me having to see it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move over to the computer and I'm going to show you guys my file structure. I'll just use FileZilla and we can go from there. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so here we are in the PlayStation Classic file structure, and I'll show you some things that I have modified. So in the GAA data, never mind folder 100, that was an initial test. It's now in folder 22, and this has the launch.txt file that I use to run RetroArch. It has a retroarch.png, and my games have been changed as well. But here is my RetroArch install. This is RetroArch Retro Boot. I cannot get this one to work yet, but I will keep practicing with that. And then I have some ROMs installed. So There's the arcade ROMs you saw earlier inside of RetroArch. I also have Sega CD, but I couldn't get Pico Drive to work. I've modified my database to include that RetroArch so that it's on the classic UI menu so that I can select it like a game. And right now I want to give a huge shout out to Velocity37. If it wasn't for your write-up on Reddit, I never would have even got into this. I wouldn't have known what the heck I was doing. So I've taken your information and I'm so grateful for it. And I've kind of, tried to learn as I go after that. So in GAA data, that's what I've added. I do want to point out that RetroArch, inside of .config RetroArch, I have modified the retroarch.cfg and the retroarch_default.cfg to point to everything that I need. And that's about it for the GAA data folder. In the home folder, I went into root, and there was a .config folder in here. I didn't realize that this was going to happen, but it did. And I was like, what is this? Oh, more RetroArch stuff. I was having issues with RetroArch not finding assets and things like that. So I went in here and I pointed the retroarch.cfg and the retroarch_default.cfg. I pointed that over to the GAA data RA config folder. I pointed it over here. And after I did that, everything's running smoothly. So you can see in the home root.config RetroArch, I don't have anything taking up space in here other than these small little config files. That's it. All this other stuff is being utilized from the GAA data folder, and the reason for that is that has more space. The home root does not have a lot of space. So luckily this fits in there nicely with room to spare, and everything is running off of this GAA data. So the other part that I did was in user, Sony, bin. You can see we have PCSX. This is actually the Intercept app that launches RetroArch for me. If it doesn't find a launch.txt, then it goes to PCSX.old. And what that is the actual BleemSync PCSX emulator, and it runs perfectly. So pretty cool in my opinion. I really like that. So if it doesn't find a launch.txt in my game folder, then it will just launch the standard emulator and I can go ahead and play my PlayStation games all I want. I didn't change anything in the lib folder. In the share folder, data, preferences, everything stayed the same. And that's pretty much it for that on this end of things. I did change all of the things I just mentioned, but everything else was left stock. I didn't have to mess with anything else. So the folders that I did have to mess with were GAA data, home root, and then also the user Sony bin. How I got RetroArch to launch initially straight out the gate was I modified the check current log.sh and I added it in early in the boot sequence, but that wasn't needed. That was for testing. Now that I've got RetroArch launching through the Intercept app, I should say, I no longer need to have it running as soon as I boot my PlayStation Classic, because the whole thing for me is I want it to look stock. That is until Emulation Station's released for PlayStation Classic, and then that's my go-to. Internal Emulation Station build, definitely. It may just be the software internally, and then the games on an external through OTG, but for now, I'm just getting RetroArch up and running. So for anyone who knows how to get those games to launch, I'm going to guess it's a launch.txt. I don't know what to put in there for those games to launch directly with a RetroArch core, with the RetroArch PlayStation core. Once I figure out how to do that, I could have NES games on the classic UI. I could have all sorts of games on the classic UI for many different consoles. It's fun to tinker with. Mostly I just want my PlayStation games to run directly through RetroArch, but I like tinkering, so I want to mess around with it as much as I can. So any feedback is appreciated, and I'm going to end the video here. I feel like it's gone on long enough, and if I have any updates, I'll definitely keep you guys in the loop. And once I figure out all the steps that I've taken and an easy, user-friendly way to do this, you can bet that I'll do a tutorial for people, obviously at your own risk, because we are modifying some internal files, and if you don't follow everything step by step, there's a chance you could break your system. So I'm a little leery about that one, but like I said, until I'm 100% comfortable with it, then there will be a tutorial for it. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. I really appreciate you watching. Please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Most importantly, have a good day.